And I think when it comes to their Muslim identity, they're growing up with the advantage of books like these and others, and people trying very hard to be representative and inclusive. And I see things that didn't exist when I was in school, like International Night and slogans celebrating diversity and things like that. But on the flip side, they're growing up in this environment where they're hearing all sorts of really, really horrible things about Muslims and about their religion, and especially in the last 2 years, that part is heartbreaking. And I often wonder when people ask me the difference between America when I was growing up versus now. And I think as much as I maybe suffered from feeling invisible and misunderstood or not important, for them, I ask them all the time, how do you feel to have to hear all of this, and what's going on at school, and what are people saying anything to you, and things like that, because that's really a different game altogether.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything you feel comfortable sharing that they've told you in their experience?
Well, this actually really was a wake-up call for me, because like I said, I would ask them periodically, and I would even ask them things like, do you ever wish you had a different name? How do you react when people pronounce your name wrong? And my son actually told me that he had a teacher who had trouble pronouncing his name. His name is Bilal, and he said that this teacher said, I'm going to call you Bill. Because I can't say it, things like, so we'd have these conversations around that, and I said, do you ever wish that your name was Bill? And they're very proud actually about, who they are and what their names are. But I would ask them from time to time, did anyone ever say anything, anti-Muslim to you, or, even before the elections? And they would, they'd always say, no one's saying anything. And then last year, over the summer, I went to a camp that was held for Muslim children, and a summer camp where they did all sorts of activities, and they invited me to do a writing workshop with them. And we actually started talking about microaggressions on the second day of the workshop, and some of the kids, it was a very diverse group of kids, and different backgrounds and races, and some girls wearing the headscarf and some not, and one little girl in a headscarf said, I get tired of people asking me where I'm from, or commenting how good my English is, or things like that. And then a few kids said, things here and there, and then there was silence. And finally one boy spoke up, and he said, I don't think people are really saying as much, because it's just something that happens every day. And we hear things like terrorist, or ISIS, or Allahu Akbar, boom, all the time. And all the kids in the room started nodding. And I was shocked. And I thought this was, in my county, right outside of Washington, D.C. And I went home and I told my kids that, these kids are in the same school system as you, and they're saying that, this is what they're all experiencing. And my kids said, oh yeah. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, yeah, we hear stuff like that all the time. And I said, why didn't you tell me when I asked you? And they said, well, they weren't saying it to us. So I guess they could tell that I was concerned about their, potentially being bullied or harassed. And so no one was outright harassing or bullying them, but they still witnessed these types of things being said, and overheard jokes or negative comments. And that's just part of their daily experience, and just something that they accepted as their reality. So to me, that was just heartbreaking to realize that it wasn't even worth mentioning as far as they were concerned.